For more than 10,000 years, the Valoran Empire controlled the galaxy. They claimed over 2,000 star systems and destroyed every race that challenged them. Their battle cruisers were unmatched across known space. Their soldiers counted in the billions. Emperor Zeltrak, the supreme ruler, watched his territory expand from a throne built from the remains of defeated rulers. Admiral Corvox stood among the Empire's greatest military minds. He led successful campaigns on 37 planets and never tasted defeat. When his scouts found a small blue world at the Orion Arm's edge, he expected another simple win. The locals called it Earth, and they called themselves humans. Basic readings revealed outdated tech and just 8 billion inhabitants. To Corvox, they seemed like bugs ready to be squashed. He gathered the third expansion force and headed toward the Sol system. 47 enormous warships answered his command, each strong enough to wipe out a small moon. His soldiers hungered for victory and fame. They heard stories that these humans were weak beings who wasted time fighting each other over silly things. They would crumble like every other race before them. What Corvox didn't realize was that humanity watched the Valoran Empire for 3 decades. Earth's spy networks caught alien messages, learned their secrets, and tracked their spread through the stars. Our leaders witnessed what the Valorans did to beaten worlds. They made free people into workers without rights. They drained planets dry until nothing survived. They wiped out entire ways of life and forced everyone to serve the Empire. Humanity decided this fate would never be theirs. Working in secret, they built defenses the galaxy had never imagined. They created weapons that made Valoran tools look like toys. They assembled ships that traveled faster than light and hit harder than suns. They prepared fighters ready to protect their home, but they hid everything. To anyone watching, Earth looked exactly as Corvox imagined, weak, broken, backward. This was the plan. Humanity wanted their enemies to think they were helpless. They wanted the Valorans to arrive confident and leave terrified. When the third expansion force dropped out of hyperspace near Jupiter, Admiral Corvox expected panic on his screens. He expected frantic messages and desperate escape attempts. What he found confused him completely. A single human ship floated in the darkness, waiting. The craft was tiny, barely matching a Valoran supply shuttle in size. Its surface looked plain and ordinary. To Corvox, it seemed like a joke. He wondered if the humans sent it as some kind of peace offering. Inside that small ship, Captain Jack Morrison relaxed in his command seat and watched the Valoran fleet fill his tactical screen. 47 red marks spread across the display like a spreading illness. His second-in-command, Commander Kate Sullivan, stood beside him with crossed arms and a peaceful look on her face. "That's quite a few ships," she said softly. Morrison nodded slowly. "Sure is. How many crew do you figure across that whole bunch?" Sullivan checked her screen. "Going by normal Valoran crew numbers, maybe 90,000. 90,000 souls who woke up today thinking they'd take over Earth," Morrison said with a small grin. "They don't have a clue what's waiting for them." Lieutenant Dan Cooper glanced up from his station. "Sir, they're broadcasting on every channel. Looks like their usual speech." Morrison waved his hand. "Let's hear what they've got to say." The bridge speakers crackled with a harsh Valoran voice. "Attention, backward species. You now belong to the Valoran Empire. Give up your planet right now. Turn off all weapons and get ready for takeover. Fighting back means we'll completely destroy your civilization. You've got 1 hour to obey." The bridge went quiet for a second. Then Morrison laughed. It wasn't a nervous or scared laugh. It was real amusement from someone who knew something his enemy didn't. "Cooper, open a line to their main ship," Morrison said. "Channel open, sir." Morrison sat up straight and spoke clearly. "Valoran Fleet, this is Captain Jack Morrison of the Earthship Resolute. Welcome to the Sol system. I'm required by Earth law to tell you that you entered protected human space without permission. You've got exactly 1 hour to turn around and leave. If you don't, we'll have to show you why leaving is your smartest choice." On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Corvox stared at the screen in shock. The human captain smiled at him. No fear showed in his eyes, no panic in his voice. He talked to Corvox like the 47 warships meant nothing more than a small bother. "Is this creature crazy?" Corvox asked his crew. His weapons expert shook his head. Hard to say, Admiral, but our readings show the human ship poses zero threat. Their weapons are basic. Their protection is weak. We could blow it apart with one blast from any destroyer. Corvox felt anger building in his chest. He conquered planets. He burned cities and shattered armies. He wouldn't be mocked by some nobody human on a worthless little craft. Destroy them, he ordered. 3 Valoran destroyers advanced and locked weapons on the Resolute. Their main guns charged with power enough to split a planet's surface. They fired together, hurling beams of burning energy through the void toward the tiny human ship. On the Resolute, Morrison didn't even blink. Kate, dodge pattern 7. Sullivan tapped her console once. The Resolute disappeared. 1 second it sat there, the next it simply vanished. The Valoran weapons passed through empty space and continued into the outer darkness. Corvox jumped up. Where did they go? Find them. His sensor officer worked frantically. After several seconds, he looked up with confusion written on his face. Admiral, the human ship relocated. It's now 10,000 kilometers to our right side. It moved faster than our systems could follow. The screen came alive again, showing Captain Morrison still sitting calmly. He now held a coffee cup and looked completely relaxed. That was your free shot, Morrison said pleasantly. I'd suggest using the next 53 minutes to rethink your choices. Morrison out. The message ended, leaving Corvox standing in stunned silence. His crew looked at each other with doubt creeping into their eyes. Something felt very wrong here. The humans didn't act like conquered people. They acted like hunters who just spotted their meal. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Corvox felt a tiny seed of fear plant itself in his heart. Admiral Corvox paced his flagship bridge like a trapped beast. His crew watched nervously as he tried understanding what just happened. The human ship moved faster than anything the Valorans possessed. It dodged their attacks like a small fish avoiding a clumsy hunter. This wasn't how things should work. These were supposed to be primitives. Launch fighters, Corvox commanded. Send boarding craft. I want that ship taken and its crew brought to me in chains. His fleet reacted instantly. Hundreds of small attack ships poured from the Valoran warships and raced toward the Resolute. Boarding craft followed closely, each filled with trained soldiers ready to breach the human hull and grab prisoners. On the Resolute, Lieutenant Cooper watched the swarm approaching on his display. We've got incoming fighters and boarding units, around 300 contacts. Captain Morrison sipped his coffee. Kate, let's toy with them a bit. Dodge pattern 12, but keep it slow enough they think they've got a shot. Commander Sullivan smiled and began typing commands. The Resolute started moving, weaving between the incoming craft with impossible smoothness. Missiles passed harmlessly by. Energy shots struck nothing but empty air. The boarding craft changed direction again and again, always chasing something that stayed just beyond reach. For 20 minutes, the small human ship danced through the Valoran assault. It never fired one weapon. It never took one hit. The alien pilots grew angry and confused. Their aiming systems couldn't lock on. Their formation fell apart as each pilot tried different tricks, all failing. Corvox watched this display with growing horror. His finest pilots looked like fools. The human ship played with them, treating a military strike like a children's game. Pull back the fighters, he finally ordered. His voice came out quiet and cold. His weapons officer looked surprised. Admiral, if we focus fire from all main ships at once, we could surely break through their shields. Do it, Corvox said. All ships aim at that ship, fire everything. 47 warships turned their weapons toward the Resolute. Thousands of cannons charged together. The combined firepower of the Third Expansion Force prepared to erase one small human ship from space. They fired. The void lit up with enough power to burn a continent. Beams and missiles and burning shots filled the area where the Resolute had been floating. And again, the human ship simply wasn't there. It reappeared behind the Valoran fleet, completely fine. Morrison's face appeared on every screen across the enemy group. 31 minutes left, he said calmly. I really suggest you start heading home. This is about to get much worse if you stay. Back on Earth, deep under the Rocky Mountains, Fleet Admiral Ben Carter watched the situation from Earth Command. The underground base was a fortress of technology and planning. Hundreds of officers worked at their stations, following the Valoran fleet and coordinating the hidden Earth Defense Forces. Defense Secretary Laura Mitchell stood beside Carter, watching the battle map with cool eyes. How long can Morrison keep them busy? Carter smiled slightly. Jack could keep them busy all day if we needed, but I'm hoping they'll see sense before we have to reveal our hand. General Sam Patterson walked up with a tablet. Third Fleet's in place in the asteroid belt. Fourth and Fifth Fleets are holding behind Mars. Home Guard units are standing by around Earth and Luna. We've got almost 600 ships ready to move on your word. Mitchell studied the figures. 600 against 47, and our ships are superior in every way. This barely seems fair. It's not meant to be fair, Carter answered. It's meant to be a statement. When news of this fight spreads through the galaxy, every empire and kingdom and alliance will know that Earth isn't to be touched. That's worth more than any agreement we could write. Patterson nodded in agreement. The Valorans never faced a real challenge. They beat weaker races and thought they were unstoppable. Today they learned different. On the Valoran command ship, Admiral Corvox received an incoming message from the Imperial home world. High Sovereign Zeltrak himself appeared on the private line, his ancient face twisted with rage. What's happening out there, Admiral? Why haven't you taken this backward planet already? Corvox struggled, finding words. Your Majesty, the humans have technology we've never seen before. Their ship can move faster than our weapons can follow. Nothing we do seems to touch them. One ship, Zeltrak hissed. You have 47 major vessels and you can't destroy one small craft. This is disgraceful. I'm sending backup. 100 extra warships will reach you within the hour. You'll crush these humans and bring their leaders to me in chains. Don't disappoint me again. The message ended. Corvox stood quietly for a long moment. Help was coming. 100 more ships would give him crushing numbers. Surely that would work. But something deep in his mind whispered a warning. The humans stayed too calm, too sure of themselves. A species facing death should be begging for mercy, not laughing at their attackers. Admiral, his communications officer called. The human ship is sending another message. Morrison appeared on the screen again. This time his face looked more serious. Admiral Corvox, I know you just got orders to keep attacking. I know help is coming. I want you to grasp that none of that matters. We've given you every chance to leave peacefully. We've shown you we're not what you thought. What comes next is your responsibility. Corvox straightened his back. You're one ship, we're an empire, your tricks won't protect you forever. You're right, Morrison agreed. We're just one ship, but here's something you haven't thought about. If one ship can do this to your fleet, what happens when we bring out the rest? The message ended. Corvox felt the seed of fear in his heart grow larger. He looked at his battle display, at the single red dot showing the human ship, and he wondered for the first time if he'd made a horrible mistake. 15 minutes until deadline, his officer reported quietly. Corvox said nothing. He simply watched the human ship floating peacefully in the darkness, waiting for time to expire. And somewhere in the asteroid belt, hidden behind invisibility fields the Valorans couldn't spot, 600 Earth warships prepared to show themselves to the galaxy. Admiral Corvox served as a military officer for over 200 years. He witnessed things that would shatter weaker minds. He watched planets burn and cultures crumble. He always held the power, always decided who survived and who perished. But now, for the first time in his long career, he felt like prey instead of hunter. The human ship continued drifting peacefully before his fleet. Captain Morrison stopped answering messages. The deadline approached and nothing changed. Corvox knew he should feel confident. He had 47 warships and help on the way. The humans had one small ship that could dodge but hadn't fired back once. But confidence wouldn't come. Something felt deeply wrong, and he sensed it in his bones. Admiral, his science officer called out, I've finished a detailed check of the human ship. Our first readings were wrong. The craft generates energy patterns that shouldn't be possible for something that size. I believe they've been hiding their real power from us. Corvox turned sharply. Explain. Their reactor output alone beats our command ship by 12 times. Their shields use technology we've never met, and their engines work on ideas our database can't identify. The science officer paused, his face pale. Sir, that one ship might be stronger than our entire fleet together. The words hung like a death sentence. Corvox looked at his crew and saw the same fear mirrored in their eyes. They walked into something they didn't understand, and now backing out seemed impossible. We can't retreat, Corvox said firmly. The Emperor demands victory. We must find a way to destroy that ship. His weapons commander stepped forward. There's one choice, Admiral, the Annihilator weapon. The bridge fell silent. The Annihilator was the most terrible weapon in the Valoran collection. It was a world killer designed to shatter planets that wouldn't surrender. It had been used only 3 times in Empire history, each time leaving nothing but dust and rubble where living worlds once existed. Using it here meant no conquest, no workers, no resources, just total destruction. If we can't have this planet, Corvox said slowly, then nobody will. Prepare the Annihilator. On the Resolute, Lieutenant Cooper caught the massive energy buildup right away. Captain, their command ship is charging some kind of super weapon. Energy readings are off the charts. Commander Sullivan checked her own displays. It matches what they used as a planet-killing device. They used it to wipe out the Carthan home world 60 years back. It can split a planet in half with one shot. Morrison set down his coffee and stood. His face had changed. The amusement disappeared, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. They're pointing a genocide weapon at Earth, he said quietly. Even if it can't hurt us, the meaning is clear. They came here planning to murder billions of innocent people. He looked at Sullivan. Open a line one more time. Admiral Corvox saw the human captain appear on his screen. Morrison no longer smiled. Admiral, I see you're charging your planet killer. I have to tell you this is a terrible choice. We've been patient. We've given you every chance to leave in peace. But if you fire that weapon, we'll respond with everything we have. Corvox felt desperate anger surge through him. You can't stop the Annihilator. Nothing stops it. Your planet will burn and your species will become history. I'm not talking about stopping it, Morrison said. I'm talking about what happens after. You'll fire that weapon and it will fail, and then we'll show you what humanity does to those who threaten our children. The message ended. Corvox stared at the empty screen for a moment, then turned to his weapons officer. Fire the Annihilator, maximum strength, destroy them all. The massive weapons system on the command ship hummed with terrible power. Energy flowed from every reactor in the fleet, focused into one devastating beam. It would strike the tiny human ship and continue onward to Earth, burning through everything in its way. The weapon fired. A beam of pure destruction shot across space. It blazed bright enough to blind sensors and strong enough to shatter moons. Corvox watched it race toward the human craft, certain this would end the fight. The beam hit something invisible in space and stopped. A shimmering wall had appeared around the Resolute, a barrier of energy that absorbed the planet-killing weapon like a child catching a ball. The Annihilator's power poured into the shield and vanished, transformed into something else entirely. Then the shield pushed outward. The redirected energy slammed into the Valoran fleet with crushing force. 6 warships exploded instantly, their hulls ripped apart by their own weapon. 3 more were crippled, drifting helplessly with fires burning across their decks. The remaining ships scattered in panic, their formation broken by the unexpected strike back. And then the stars began moving. Corvox watched in horror as the darkness around his fleet came alive. Points of light he assumed were distant stars revealed themselves as something far more terrifying. Ships, hundreds of ships. They dropped their invisibility fields together, appearing from nothing like ghosts taking form. Earth warships surrounded the Valoran fleet in every direction. They were beautiful and deadly, their hulls gleaming with technology that made the Empire's ships look ancient. 600 vessels, each radiating power that dwarfed anything Corvox ever witnessed. On the command station behind the Earth formation, Fleet Admiral Ben Carter opened a channel to all frequencies. His voice stayed calm but carried absolute authority. Valoran Fleet, this is Fleet Admiral Carter of the Earth Defense Force. You attacked an Earth ship. You aimed a weapon of mass destruction at our home planet. Your hour expired. Power down your weapons, lower your shields, and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." Corvox looked at his battle display. The red dots showing his fleet were surrounded by blue dots that outnumbered them more than 10 to 1. His ships were damaged and scattered. His crews were frightened and confused. And the humans weren't afraid. They never were afraid. They'd been waiting for this moment all along. The real battle was about to start. Admiral Corvox stood on his damaged command ship's bridge and faced the impossible. 600 human warships surrounded his fleet. They appeared from nowhere, dropping their invisibility like hunters revealing themselves to trapped prey. His 47 ships were scattered, disorganized, and terrified. But Corvox remained a warrior of the Valoran Empire. He conquered planets and crushed armies. He wouldn't surrender to these upstart humans without fighting. "All ships battle formation," he commanded. "Focus fire on their command ship. If we destroy their leader, maybe the rest will collapse." His fleet responded with desperate courage. The surviving Valoran warships regrouped and aimed their weapons toward the biggest human ship in the formation. Thousands of guns charged and fired together, sending a wall of destruction toward the enemy. The human fleet didn't move. They didn't need to. Defense systems activated across every Earth ship. Missiles got shot down before reaching their targets. Energy beams bounced off shields that absorbed punishment without weakening. The massive Valoran attack accomplished nothing except wasting ammunition. Then the humans fired back. Commander Lisa Brooks commanded the TSS Vanguard from the center of the Earth formation. She was a calm woman with gray hair and steady hands, a veteran of humanity's first meeting with hostile alien life. She trained for this moment her entire career. "All weapons, selective targeting," she ordered. "Disable their guns and engines. Keep casualties low where possible. These soldiers aren't our real enemy. They're just following commands from tyrants who never faced consequences." The Earth fleet opened fire with surgical accuracy. Their weapons didn't scatter wildly like Valoran guns. Each shot was calculated for a specific result. Ship after ship in the enemy formation went dark as their systems got destroyed by targeted strikes. Corvox watched his battle display turn from bad to disaster. His ships were being picked apart by an enemy that seemed to know exactly where to strike. Engines failed. Weapons went offline. Communications got jammed. In less than 3 minutes, half his fleet drifted helplessly. "Fight back," he screamed. "Fire, don't let these humans beat us." But fighting was no longer possible. The Valoran ships that still had working weapons found their shots blocked or dodged with easy skill. The humans moved through space like dancers, their coordination perfect and their reactions instant. It seemed like they could predict every attack before it happened. On the Resolute, Captain Morrison watched the battle unfold on his display. His ship had moved back from the front, allowing the larger Earth ships to take over. Commander Sullivan stood beside him, tracking enemy losses. "This is almost too easy," she said quietly. "They don't know how to fight someone who can actually fight back." Morrison nodded slowly. 10,000 years of bullying weaker species. They never had to develop real tactics or plans. They just overwhelmed everyone with numbers and firepower. Now they're learning what happens when that doesn't work. The battle continued for 4 more minutes. The Earth fleet dismantled the Valoran invasion force with mechanical efficiency. Ships that surrendered were disabled gently and their crews taken prisoner. Ships that kept fighting were destroyed without mercy. There was no anger in the human response, no rage or bloodlust. It was simply work that needed doing. Admiral Corvox finally understood he'd lost. His command ship was crippled, surrounded by Earth ships that could finish him any time. His fleet was gone. His dreams of conquest had turned to dust. He contacted the human commander one last time. "Fleet Admiral Carter, I request surrender terms." Carter's face appeared on the damaged screen. His face showed neither victory nor cruelty. "Admiral Corvox, your surrender is accepted. Power down all remaining weapons and prepare your crew for boarding. Any resistance will be met with matching force." "What happens to my soldiers?" Corvox asked. They'll be treated as war prisoners. Medical care will be given to the wounded. Nobody will be harmed without cause. Carter paused. I want you to remember this, Admiral. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in seconds. We chose not to. We disabled your ships and captured your crews because we're not monsters. We don't kill when we don't have to. Corvox felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as shame. Across the battlefield, Earth boarding teams moved from ship to ship. They were professional and efficient, securing Valoran crew members with minimal violence. The alien soldiers who expected torture and death found themselves treated with unexpected dignity. Their wounds got bandaged. They received food and water. They were spoken to with respect rather than contempt. General Sam Patterson commanded the ground forces from his station in Earth Command. He watched the boarding operations through dozens of camera feeds, making sure his soldiers maintained discipline. Some of these Valoran officers seem confused, Defense Secretary Mitchell observed. They keep expecting us to hurt them. Patterson nodded. That's what they do in our position. The Empire treats prisoners as slaves or entertainment. They can't understand an enemy who follows different rules. Maybe that's the most important message we can send, Mitchell said thoughtfully. Not just that we can beat them, but that we're better than them. The last Valoran warship powered down its weapons 47 minutes after the battle began. The third expansion force had stopped existing as a fighting force. 12,000 enemy soldiers were now prisoners of the Earth Defense Force. Not a single human life was lost. Admiral Corvox got escorted off his command ship by Earth Marines. They were polite but firm, guiding him toward a shuttle that would take him to the human command station. As he walked through the halls of his ruined ship, he passed human medics treating wounded Valoran crew members. One young soldier had lost his arm in an explosion. A human doctor was carefully fitting him with a replacement limb, explaining in gentle tones how to use it. Corvox stopped walking. He stared at the scene for a long moment. Why, he finally asked his guards, why help him? He's your enemy. One of the Marines, a young woman with kind eyes, looked at him calmly. He was our enemy. Now he's just a wounded person who needs help. That's reason enough. Corvox had no response. He kept walking toward the shuttle, his mind struggling to process everything he witnessed. The humans weren't just powerful. They were something he never encountered in 2 centuries of warfare. They were merciful, and that, more than their weapons or their ships, terrified him to his core. Admiral Corvox stood in the center of a large meeting room aboard the Earth Command Station. Through the windows, he could see Earth floating in the distance, a beautiful blue marble wrapped in white clouds. The planet he came to conquer now served as a constant reminder of his failure. Fleet Admiral Ben Carter sat across from him at a simple metal table. There were no guards in the room, no weapons pointed at the Valoran commander. Carter dismissed his security team, leaving the 2 admirals alone to talk. 47 Valoran ships destroyed or captured, Carter said calmly. 12,000 of your soldiers are now our prisoners. The backup fleet you were expecting turned around the moment they heard reports of what happened here. I suspect your emperor is quite upset right now. Corvox said nothing. His pride had shattered. His fleet was gone. His career was over. He led his people into a trap and watched them fall. We're going to release you, Carter continued. You and your surviving officers will get a repaired shuttle and be sent home to the Empire. But before you go, we need to talk about the future. Corvox looked up with surprise. You're setting us free? Why? We came to enslave your planet. We tried to kill your people. You tried, Carter agreed. You failed, and now you have information your emperor needs to hear. He pressed a button on the table, and a holographic display activated between them. It showed the entire galaxy with the Valoran Empire marked in red and Earth marked in blue. We know about your empire, Admiral. We've been watching you for decades. We know what you do to the species you conquer. We know about the slave worlds and the death camps and the cultural erasure. We let you come here because we wanted to send a message, and messages need witnesses. Corvox stared at the map. The Valoran Empire stretched across thousands of star systems, a vast red stain covering a quarter of the galaxy. Earth was a single blue dot on the edge of explored space. It should have been nothing, but today proved it wasn't nothing. "What's your message?" Corvox asked. Carter leaned forward. "Humanity has no interest in conquest. We don't want your planets or your resources. We're not empire builders. But we also won't tolerate slavery, genocide, or expansion through violence. Every species the Valoran Empire conquered will be offered freedom. Every slave will be released. Every colony will get the right to determine its own future." Corvox almost laughed despite his despair. "You expect the Empire to simply surrender everything we built, to free trillions of slaves and abandon thousands of worlds. The Emperor would never agree to such terms." "I know," Carter said. "I expect him to refuse. I expect him to gather every warship in his domain and come here seeking revenge. That's the second part of the message." He gestured at the holographic display. "You brought 47 ships today. You lost them all in less than 10 minutes. Imagine what happens when you bring 4,700 or 47,000. The words hung in the air. Corvox understood what Carter meant. This hadn't been a battle, it had been a demonstration. The humans showed a fraction of their power, just enough to prove their point. "You want me to tell the Emperor that humanity can't be defeated," Corvox said slowly. "I want you to tell him the truth," Carter answered. "Earth is off limits. Any attack on our world or our allies will be met with crushing force, but we're also offering an alternative. The Empire can change, it can evolve, it can become something better than a machine of conquest and oppression. If Zeltrak chooses that path, we'll help him. We'll share technology and knowledge, we'll trade and cooperate, but if he chooses war, we'll end him." Corvox sat in silence for a long time. He thought about his life, his career, everything he believed about power and strength. The Valoran Empire always measured greatness by how many worlds it could crush. The humans measured it differently. "Why do you care what happens to our slaves?" he finally asked. "They're not your people, they're not your responsibility." Carter smiled slightly. "Because they're people, that's enough." 3 days later, Admiral Corvox left the Sol system in a repaired shuttle. His crew consisted of 20 Valoran officers who survived the battle. They carried with them recordings of the conflict, detailed scans of human technology, and a formal declaration of terms from the Earth government. Captain Morrison also gave Corvox a personal gift before his departure. It was a simple ceramic mug with words printed on the side. "I survived the Sol system, and all I got was this lousy mug." Corvox didn't understand human humor, but he kept the mug anyway. The journey home took 3 weeks. During that time, Corvox watched the battle recordings again and again. He studied the way the human ships moved, the precision of their weapons, the mercy they showed to beaten enemies. He thought about the young Marine who explained why they helped wounded prisoners. He thought about Admiral Carter's calm confidence, so different from the arrogance of Valoran commanders. When he finally reached the throne world and delivered his report to High Sovereign Zeltrak, the Emperor's reaction was exactly what Carter predicted. Rage, denial, demands for immediate revenge. Orders were given to gather the largest fleet in the history of the Empire. Humanity would pay for this embarrassment. But word of the battle already spread beyond the palace walls. The slave worlds heard what happened at Earth. They heard that a single species defeated the mighty Valoran fleet without losing one ship. They heard about the human offer of freedom. Within 3 months, the first uprisings began. Slaves who lived in chains for generations found new courage. Conquered species who forgot how to hope remembered how to fight. The empire that seemed invincible suddenly faced threats from within and without. On Earth, life continued as normal. Captain Jack Morrison returned home to his wife Amy and their small house on the Oregon coast. He spent 3 peaceful weeks fishing and gardening before his communicator buzzed with news of another alien fleet approaching. "You have to leave again?" Amy asked, watching him pack his bag. Morrison sighed and kissed her forehead. "Duty calls, but don't worry. These ones look even less prepared than the Valorans. I should be home for dinner." He left her laughing on the porch as his shuttle rose into the clear morning sky. Far across the galaxy, empires that never knew fear began reconsidering their futures. The humans announced themselves not with anger or aggression, but with absolute confidence. They were amused by threats because they had nothing to prove. They weren't afraid because they prepared for every possibility. And slowly, one world at a time, the galaxy began to change.